Welcome back, horror lovers. This time around, we'll be traveling to Argentina to learn a story that deeply shocked many people in the country not so long ago. And we're certain that hearing it will leave you frozen in shock as well. It all started when Mauro started going to a new school. He moved to a new city because the company his father worked for relocated him there. However, in his hometown, Mauro had many friends and acquaintances, and the news of having to move out made him fall into a deep depression. Due to his state, Mauro struggled to connect with other kids. And not only that, but many of the city kids smugly looked at him with disdain. Mauro would spend the half hour of recess in the schoolyard, sitting on a bench, his breakfast being his only company. He would then come back home and would cry for having to go to that school the next day to feel completely lonely. However, one time when he was having his breakfast alone in the bench, he saw through the fence a boy on a swing in the park next to the school. And even though nobody else was with the boy, he had a huge smile on his face. The boy on the swing then turned around and saw Mauro looking at him. They looked at each other for a long time, and the boy always kept smiling. Ashamed, Mauro turned around, and when he turned back to look at the swing, the boy was no longer there. Mauro spent the rest of recess and his remaining classes thinking how he could have made a new friend, and regretted not introducing himself to the only person who had looked at him with a smile, not judging him for where he came from. On his way back home, Mauro wished to see that boy again. And a week later, when he had abandoned all hope, he heard the noise of the swing's chains, and there was that boy, as smiley as he remembered. Mauro wanted to approach the fence to introduce himself and talk to him, but he feared being rejected and making the boy feel annoyed. But then Mauro heard a metallic sound. It was the boy who was now in front of the fence and hitting it to draw Mauro's attention. Nervous, Mauro approached the boy and both started talking. They introduced themselves and talked about their hobbies. The boy explained that his family was so poor that they didn't have enough money to buy his school supplies, and that was the reason he was always outside of the school. The boy didn't have friends either, so they both understood how hard it was to feel lonely. And so they spent many weeks talking through the fence during recess. And when Mauro had to go back to class, they would say, "See you tomorrow," taking for granted that they would see each other on the next school day. Then one day, the boy told Mauro to escape from school by climbing the fence so they could go have a walk. Mauro knew that if he was caught, the school would call his parents and he would be grounded for a really long time. However, the boy was his best friend, so he finally decided to do it. Mauro made sure nobody was looking and would come back before recess was over. Mauro didn't return home that day. The teacher said he didn't go to his remaining classes, and his parents and the police started searching for him relentlessly. Then, the next morning, the school principal observed how all of the students were crowding around the fence. Struggling, he made his way to the fence and was frozen in shock when he saw, right by the side of that swing, Mauro's dismembered corpse. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it. And if you want to see more Draw My Life horror videos, subscribe to our channel. See you in the next episode.